funds will belong to Ukraine, not just aid or revenge money. Opening EU accession talks for Ukraine is now a direct response to Hungary's obstruction. We will tell you more in this episode, so you'll be in focus. Don't forget to subscribe and stay with us for the latest updates. Recent news about aid for Ukraine tells us that Romania is gearing up to launch joint drone production with Ukraine, not just for its own needs, but also for EU and NATO partners. In an interview with Reuters, Romanian Foreign Minister Oana Tsoiu said talks with Kyiv on the project that has started even before Russia's recent airspace violations over NATO territory. She expressed confidence that Bucharest can move quickly, stressing the urgency and strategic importance of getting the initiative off the ground. And EU chief Ursula von der Leyen says Russia must pay for the war. Brussels plans an interest-free loan for Ukraine funded by frozen Russian assets. The move would support weapons for Kyiv and boost Europe's defense industry. More next.
A legal path exists for seizing 140 billion euros of frozen Russian assets, stated European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen. These funds are planned to be directed toward Ukraine's defense. Additionally, the European Union aims to use part of the money to finance its own defense industry. Von der Leyen also outlined the specifics of the reparations loan for Ukraine.
The loan would not be dispersed in one go, but in tranches and with conditions attached. And we will strengthen our own defense industry by ensuring that part of the loan is used for procurement in Europe and with Europe. Importantly, there is no seizing of the assets. Ukraine has to repay the loan if Russia is paying reparations. If Russia is paying reparations, the perpetrator must be held responsible.
German Chancellor Friedrich Merz intends to convince European colleagues to agree to use frozen Russian assets to finance Ukraine's defense and reconstruction, reports Spiegel. However, almost all countries support the European Commission's initiative, noted Finnish Prime Minister Petteri Orpo ahead of the Copenhagen summit. Denmark, which currently holds the EU presidency, also supports the initiative, stated Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen.
We have been supportive all the way through this war, that Europe has to do more, also on the financing question. And I think the idea from the Commission is actually quite a good way forward. Of course, there are some legal questions that has to be asked, and I'm confident that we will find a way through this, but the whole idea of using the frozen assets, I think, is a good idea.
The discussion is no longer about the feasibility of using frozen Russian assets. Most of Kyiv's partners agree on this, but about the mechanism for their use, experts explain. For example, one option could involve financing the loan through new Eurobonds guaranteed by EU countries, instead of directly using Russian assets. France considers this option optimal. Raising cash on financial markets by issuing new debt obligations guaranteed by the EU and national budgets is a very good thing, stated President Macron. The European Union is considering a mechanism whereby Moscow remains the nominal holder of the funds, but Kyiv can actually use them.
The formula does not involve confiscating Russian money. It involves transferring Russian money, and when the war ends and Russia must compensate Ukraine for the damages caused, hundreds of billions of dollars, then the money Ukraine has already used will be deducted from that amount.
EU leaders face another challenging task: how to overcome Hungary's sabotage, which blocks initiatives to support Ukraine. The European Commission has found a legal way to exclude Budapest from the decision-making process, reports Politico. The issue is that all 27 member states must vote in favor of providing the loan, meaning Orban could again impose a veto. According to media reports, EU lawyers have developed a scheme to ensure the decision on the proposed reparations loan for Ukraine is adopted by a qualified majority. The EU initiative is both a financial tool to assist Kyiv and a political signal to Moscow.
Well, we are working on the reparations loan, to move as fast as possible, but of course not all member states are there. It's not supported by everybody yet, so there's still a lot of work to do. So I can't put the deadline, and we are trying to do as fast as possible. We are working on that as well. That requires also discussion regarding our working methods that is planned also in October in the Foreign Affairs Council, as well as the Council that is happening in October.
In March 2025, as part of the G7 initiative, Ukraine received the first tranche from the UK, secured by income from frozen Russian assets. In Kyiv, this was called a mechanism that makes Russian funds work for Ukraine. The country must recover, including with the help of frozen Russian assets, believes President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. Reported by Victoria Chistyukina, UATV News.
The EU may change its rules for adding new members because Hungary is blocking Ukraine's EU talks. Now Brussels is thinking about allowing decisions by majority vote, not only when everyone agrees. This could help start talks with Ukraine sooner. But in the end, EU countries will still make the final choice, said EU spokesperson Guillaume Mercier. Watch our report for more details.
Ukraine and the European Union have completed the screening of Ukrainian legislation, and the European Commission hopes to open negotiations on the first cluster in the near future, said EU Commissioner for Enlargement Marta Koss.
I would love to stress that it is not true what some people claim that we are stuck in the accession process. From the technical point of view, we are working really a lot, and in a few weeks, we will be in the position to be able to open all the clusters. But the decision has to be made in the Council. So, I call on the Council to decide on the opening of Cluster 1 without further delays on the only legitimate ground, the merits of Ukraine. Marta Koss, European Commissioner for Enlargement.
The work lasted 15 months. Ahead are the European Commission's conclusions on the screening results. They will become the basis for further steps on Ukraine's path to European integration, explained the government.
More than 70 state authorities joined the work. Such scale and pace of work became an unprecedented example of our ability to move forward even during the war. Oleksiy Kuleba, Deputy Prime Minister, Minister of Community and Territories Development, on Facebook.
The European Union is ready to start technical work on opening negotiation clusters for Ukraine and Moldova to accelerate Kyiv and Chisinau's accession to the EU. According to Financial Times, the European Union is considering the possibility of temporarily bypassing Hungary's veto, which systematically blocks Kyiv's European integration. This would allow both countries to continue adapting their legislation to EU standards and implementing necessary reforms, even without formal consent from all 27 member states.
Europe is now truly facing a very serious choice, unprecedented security risks. And why is Europe now much more interested in Ukraine's integration than before? It's very simple. Because when we see that the architecture of global security is changing, the configuration is changing, the real configuration in NATO, and the European Union itself is trying to evolve under the pressure of those threats hanging both externally and internally.
Ukraine will definitely join the European Union, stated President Volodymyr Zelenskyy at the Warsaw Security Forum. He emphasized that the country is fulfilling all necessary conditions for membership. The position of individual countries should not become an obstacle. The head of state is confident.
We are doing everything required, and it is important that Ukraine's accession is not delayed by the national politics of these or that countries. This is not about what we have already gone through in history. It is about what we all must avoid. And what we must avoid is any dependence on Russia.
There are chances to vote by qualified majority to open negotiation clusters for Ukraine's accession to the European Union. This was told to journalists on condition of anonymity by a high-ranking European diplomat. According to him, EU leaders will discuss the negotiations on Ukraine's EU accession at an informal summit in Copenhagen. Reported by Victoria Chistyukina, UATV News.
What's your take on all this? Share your thoughts below. This is UATV. Stay sharp, in focus, and stay safe.